Good evening, everyone, or afternoon, or morning, depending on when you're listening to this. Welcome to the 10th episode of Understanding Emotions. I am Sankalp. Until now, I have talked quite a bit about emotions and have given my views on how to relate to them. But if you want to understand what's healthy and what's not, as far as our emotional lives go, we need to understand the space in which they appear. The space which we refer to as the mind. Consider an analogy with the body. It is now well established that exercising is good for you. It is, in fact, good for any body. A specific exercise may or may not be right for a specific body. For instance, if you have a fractured knee, then perhaps you should avoid doing squats and lunges. But we can still say that exercise in general is good for your body. What enables us to make such a statement? It is the fact that we understand the body and have a model for what's good for it. We have a model for what a healthy body looks like. For instance, when we squat, our muscles reliably work in certain ways that make them grow. Of course, when combined with necessary nutrition. But overall, exercise and nutrition are the models we have for muscle growth. No one truly understands every nitty-gritty of the muscle growth process, but an informed model can tell us what's healthy regardless. So what might such a model be for our minds? And how can such a model help build an understanding of what's healthy? Now, describing our minds is slightly more difficult than describing our bodies. You can see your body. You can measure your body. If I ask you to point at your feet, you would have no trouble. But now if I ask you to point at your mind, where would you point? But just because it is difficult to measure does not mean that it does not exist. After all, if there is one thing we can be certain of, it is the fact that it feels like to be something to be living. There are several models of the mind that are described in various Eastern and Western traditions. For the purposes of emotional intelligence, the best one I've found is an analogy to a family. As per the model, our minds are like families with various members. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, visions are members of this family. The part which you identify as you, the part that wants to be more emotionally intelligent, could be thought of as the head of the family. There are several reasons why I like this model. For one, it can paint an image of what a healthy mind looks like. A family that is healthy and which functions well is one in which all individual members are happy. They feel belonged. Whatever needs to be done for the family to survive and thrive, all of the members share those tasks and do those in harmony. There is a sense of ease at the individual level, but also a sense of connectedness and well-being at the entire family level. The whole is greater than the sum, so to speak. On the flip side, even if one member turns upset, for any reason, that sense can percolate throughout the entire family. That one person can meddle with the peace of others. On the more extreme side, we all might have either experienced or known what completely unhealthy families look like. Stories of alcoholic fathers, enraged mothers, and codependent children are to be seen far and wide. Let's see how this model can help us with emotional intelligence. One of the biggest problems we face in dealing with our emotions is having conflicting emotions. We know that we should have love and compassion for ourselves. Hint, listen to the previous episode. But we also want to deliver our work on time. Hint, listen to the episode on perfectionism. How might a healthy family deal with such a disagreement? I think everyone's opinions will be heard, and everyone would be thanked for their viewpoint. Then all sides would deliberate and choose the best action forward. A healthy family of emotions would work in the exact same way. All sides are heard and accepted. They are even thanked for wanting the best for your mind. And then the best way forward, considering all opinions, would be chosen. A healthy family would not brutally shun anyone's opinion, and a healthy emotional family would not brutally shun any emotion either. That is why I think acceptance is the foundation of emotional intelligence, and I've made an entire episode on it. Link is in the show notes, of course. Another reason why the analogy with family works best is because a typical family has children, and they come with a higher set of needs until they grow up and mature. Many of times what prevents us from living healthy emotional lives are these inner children. And to deal with such issues, it's imperative that we talk to these parts of ourselves as if talking to children. Consider how a healthy family would handle a tantrum thrown by a child. A parent would be loving, hear what the child has to say, identify the child's fear, and lovingly assure them that they are safe. The same should be our approach when dealing with our emotional inner child. Our inner moves should be those of acceptance, love, understanding, and assurance. Most of us intellectualize our emotional problems and try to solve it like a math puzzle. But all that the inner child might need is an assurance of comfort and safety. Another reason why the family analogy works is because there is no clear center to the family. Sure, I don't mean to say that everyone gets equal say. There should be leadership from certain parts. But there is no one person who is the family itself. It is a system. This diffusion is critical because if you think about it, all our emotional issues are about a self, about ourselves. Suffering really is predicated on there being a single unitary self, a little homunculus, so to speak, to whom life happens. Our family analogy calls that view into question. If I say that the family is suffering, what does that mean? It doesn't tell you that just one single person is suffering, but instead suggests a disharmony in the system. Multiple parts could be, and often are, at odds. This understanding helps us not take our emotions personally, and thus saves us a lot of agony. I hope you see why an analogy to a family system is a good one to represent the mind. It is important to remember though that this is a model, a map. And by definition, a map will not be the territory. For example, in an actual dysfunctional family, a valid option to solve problems is to break free out of it. Couples get divorced, children move out, and so on. But when it comes to our emotions, there is no divorcing or moving out. And therefore, acceptance and improving our emotional intelligence are the only way forward. Secondly, such an analogy might break when talking about mental illnesses. For example, if one has an underlying mood condition, then it is perhaps unhelpful to think of it as a part of the family. But regardless, I only think the family model is useful when talking about emotional intelligence. None of what I say in this podcast is meant for the clinical side of our minds. So those are a few caveats. In general, I find the family analogy incredibly useful, especially in the context of emotional intelligence. Hope you found it useful too. Okay, thank you for listening to today's episode. This one was a bit theoretical, so I don't really have much practical tips. But I believe making this shift of thinking of yourself as one unified self, to thinking of yourself as a family system is in itself relieving. You feel no longer needing to get rid of parts of you. It helps you build your acceptance muscles. Alright, so this is the 10th episode. I feel delighted to share this journey with you. Thank you so much for being with me. I can tell that writing for this show has helped me organize my own thoughts. I feel good myself when I write a good episode for this show. Of course, emphasis is on good. So while I hope what I write helps you, I can myself feel the emotional health that all of this writing is bringing me. Thank you again for listening. As always, if you like what I'm doing here, please share this podcast with whoever you think will benefit. This is the best way to show appreciation and support for this show. To make it accessible, this podcast is available on iTunes and Spotify, along with a normal RSS feed. If you use Spotify, please follow the show. If you use iTunes, please review it on the podcast page. All of this will help the search engines find the show better. Finally, please reach out. I'd love to hear what you think. I'd love to hear if you're finding value in this show. I'd love to hear any questions from you. Hearing back from listeners feels great and gives me the much needed encouragement to keep growing. Thank you very much and see you next time.